This is the Panasonic HM-TA2 camcorder. You see it looks a lot like a smartphone. Has this big touchscreen on the back, but you do get a dedicated recording button, but unfortunately it's rather low. So as you're holding it, you want to naturally grip it more like this, so it's kind of uncomfortable to have to push it all the way down here. It's easy to slip out of your hands when you're holding it like this. But they do give you a lanyard strap, and this little thing here is the stylus for the touchscreen. You don't need a stylus, but they give you that just in case you want to use it. There's the lens on the front. It is autofocus. It has a little built-in LED light. On top, those are the stereo microphones. There's no external microphone jack, but you do get a headphone jack, and it can actually do a live preview as you're recording. It's one of the few little pocket cameras that can actually do that, because most cameras based on the Ambarella chip can only give you a headphone output when you're playing back something you've already recorded, but this can do it when you're just aiming the camera at something. So that's a nice feature. Next to that is the HDMI output, and then there's the lever to open up the USB port. It's one of those little pop-out things. So it doesn't have much flexibility, so you're better off using an extension cable to connect it to your computer. And on the bottom you get the tripod mount and the SD card slot under that little door there. This does look like metal around the edge, but that's just painted plastic. And the camera can stand up on its end, although it's a little bit tipsy, so I wouldn't trust that when it's windy outside. And finally on this side it's just the on-off button. And you can see you hold it vertically to record video, which is nice. Although the actual preview only takes up a small amount of the actual LCD screen. So it's a 3-inch screen, but the actual visible size is much smaller than that. So you get various buttons here on the touch screen. You get a menu. You can turn on the LED light. And in the setup menu, you get your recording mode for video. 1920 by 1080, 30 frames per second. 720p, 30 frames per second. There is no 60 frames per second mode on this. And both 1080p and 720p have the same field of view. So it's not like a lot of these cameras where the 1080p is more zoomed in than 720p. On this one, they're both equal. You also get 640 by 480, 4:3 aspect ratio. And iframe mode, which is 960 by 540, using a very high bitrate to reduce quality loss when editing and re-encoding. And unlike most iframe cameras, the audio is 256 kilobits, is not 128. And that's true for all of these modes. The audio is 256 kilobits, so it's unusually high bitrate for audio compared to most other pocket-sized cameras. You can do still photos, 8 megapixels, 2 megapixels. It's kind of unusual they don't give you 5 megapixels because that's the actual resolution of the sensor. So you just have to choose between only 2 megapixels or interpolating it to 8 megapixels. But you can do 2 megapixels in either 16 by 9 or 4:3, and then you get 640 by 480. Voice recorder mode, you can choose PCM uncompressed, and it is stereo using those built-in microphones. You can use AAC at 256 kilobits, AAC at 128 kilobits, and AAC 128 kilobits low gain. It's supposed to be better for interviews, it says, but I've tried both modes and they sound exactly the same to me, so I don't know what the deal is with that. You get a self-timer. Of course, you can set the clock. HDMI resolution. Format the media, so not that much in the way of options. But you can go in here and do special effects like sepia and monochrome. So same standard things like that. And you can turn on night mode, which slows down the shutter speed to 15 frames per second. So it's a little bit more choppy. There was a previous model called the HM-TA1, which was more popular. So you usually see a lot more TA1s for sale than TA2s. I took some notes about the differences between the TA1 and the TA2. Big difference is that the TA2 has a built-in stereo microphone while the TA1 is only mono. Also, the TA2 has a 3-inch touchscreen while the TA1 is a 2-inch LCD and just has buttons, which actually may be more convenient instead of trying to use the touchscreen, because I found it to be a bit unresponsive. Also, the TA1 you can remove the battery, while on the TA2 is built in. You can't remove it, at least not without disassembling the camera. But on the TA2 you do get the night view mode, which has that slower shutter speed for better sensitivity. Also has a slightly better low lux rating at 9 lux at 1/30 shutter speed instead of 12 lux for the TA1. It also adds the headphone jack, the voice recorder mode, and the HDMI output. So here's some sample footage recorded using the TA2, and all the footage you see was recorded in 720p mode. Here's some indoor footage with the Panasonic HM-TA2 on a rainy December day. Mannheim Steamroller is always good for testing audio quality. Panasonic doesn't advertise this camera as waterproof, but I'm going to take it out in the rain anyway. Here's a test of the digital zoom. Some driving footage with the Panasonic HM-TA2, which it conveniently says right above the LCD screen, so you always know what model number you're using. This is 720p mode. Would have been nice if it had 60 frames per second in 720p, but 30 frames is okay. See how well the electronic image stabilizer is working. Here's a sample of the voice recorder mode. This is recording in uncompressed PCM audio. This is a throwback for me because when I got my very first camcorder back in 2008, that was an Aptec AHD Plus. The first video I ever posted online from it was a sample of me testing its voice recorder mode. So we'll see how this one sounds. And here I am recording video in the same situation I was just testing the voice recorder mode in. We'll see if there's any difference in audio quality between voice recorder mode and camcorder mode. Here's a test of 1080p mode. All the other clips you've seen so far were recorded in 720p mode, but this time I'm recording in 1080p and then it's going to be scaled down to 720p for the video to see if that makes any difference. And while I'm at it, here's a test of the iframe mode, which is 960 by 540 resolution, which is half of 1920 by 1080. And the advantage of the iframe mode is that it uses a very high video bitrate, so that's designed to reduce quality loss when editing and re-encoding the video. But this will be upscaled to 720p in this case. And finally back to 720p mode to see if there's any visible difference between 960 by 540 upscaled to 1280 by 720 and actual 720p recording.
It's frozen. The story of my life, I give her up, I spend her love until she's broken inside. The story of my life.
So the good things and the bad things about this camera. Good things is it looks very nice. It's very nicely finished. And it takes decent video quality. Although it would be nice if it had a 60 frames per second mode. And the built-in microphone sounds decent, although when you're doing narration it's rather sensitive to your breath because it's right on the top there, so you have to be careful of how you position yourself so you don't overload the microphone. And the voice recorder mode is convenient. And also the headphone jack, that's a thing you don't usually see on these little cameras. But like I said, there is no external microphone jack, and the built-in LED light is nice, and the autofocus on this is faster than the Philips Cam110, which I'm using right now to record this part of the review. But downsides, it's only digital zoom, and the electronic image stabilization on this is really not that good. It's definitely more shaky than the Philips Cam110, which has an optical image stabilizer, and it's even more shaky than this little Kodak Z1, which is also digital image stabilizer, but it does a much better job of it. So in terms of cameras I actually prefer, I would say the Philips Cam110 and this little thing. This one, you can see it's quite big. It's about the size of a modern smartphone. They put a lot of nice features in it, but the performance is just not the greatest. Also gets quite grainy in low light, and the field of view is not that wide. It's a 49mm field of view. I think the Philips does quite a bit better than that. And these touchscreen controls are rather fiddly. Like you can see it highlighted the yellow there, but it's not responding unless I really tap on it. So it certainly is a full-featured pocket-sized HD camera, but it's just not my favorite. I think the Philips overall does a better job, and for something very small and convenient, I prefer this little Kodak because it's just so small and so easy to hold. And also by the time the TA2 came out, smartphones are already starting to record pretty decent quality video, so you really don't see that many of these. I just happened to get one of these at a good price, so I figured I'd test it out and do a review of it.